America could be with us tonight. She was campaigning in Iowa with me last week. She'll be back this coming week, but as you get a chance to meet her, I think you'll like her. I love her very much, and she's the love of my life and best friend. Of course, we've had some wonderful experiences together that stick in your mind. I remember some years ago when our daughters Anna and Mara were much younger, we went over to a vacation in the Wisconsin Dells, the Wisconsin Riviera. And for those of you who have been there, you know it's some water slides, a lot of fun for families. In early August, we were driving back to Minneapolis in my little Dodge Stratus. Mary and I in the front seat, the girls in the back. And of course, for those of you who remember these long car rides with young kids, you know how it goes, right? So about an hour into the car ride, the girls are in the back seat, they're pulling each other's hair, and they're elbowing each other in the ribs, and they're throwing juice boxes at each other, and pretty soon the tempers in the car were about matching the temperatures outside. And so I pulled it into a gas station and opened up the doors of the car, and I was kind of murmuring and grinding my teeth a little bit about these misbehaving kids and their bad behavior. And this gentleman was pumping gas right next to me. And he was looking at me and my family. I thought you could sense there was some tension in my family, and our eyes kind of met by the gas pump there. And he looked at me and he said, "I wish I had 2 kids." I thought, "Oh, thank you, jerk. And here you have these cherubs, these beautiful gifts from God, these wonderful, perfect behaving children. And this poor sap, he doesn't have any of this." And so I looked at him, I said, "Well, I'm sorry, sir, you don't have kids?" And he looked at me and said, "No, I got 5 kids. I wish I had 2 kids." I just want to start about putting things in context, and I want to share with you tonight the context for the challenges and the opportunities our country's facing. I'm running for President of the United States because I've got the leadership and the record of results and the experience and the values and the vision to lead this country back to a better place. Before I talk to you about how we move forward, I think it's important for those of us gathered here tonight to step back and remember and learn from how we got into this mess. And one of the reasons that the United States of America is in this mess is because the Democrats of Iowa were mesmerized by a gentleman named Barack Obama, who came through this state in 2007 and 2008, and he gave soaring speeches. He used incredible rhetoric. Boy, the speeches were fantastic. And he mesmerized the Democrats, and they sent him on his way. They catapulted him on his way to the presidency of the United States. Now, what have we learned from that? Well, one thing we learned is this. Before you put somebody in the White House, in the Oval Office as president, it would be a good idea if they actually had done something and led something and run something before we put them in the White House. Before he became president, Barack Obama was a community organizer. Barack Obama was a college professor. Barack Obama was in the United States Senate long enough to have a cup of coffee before it got cold. Then he became president. Then we wonder why it's not working. But as importantly, not only did he lack the skills and the experience and the ability to be president of the United States, he had something even worse, and that is the wrong judgment, a dangerous direction, and the wrong plan for America. And you'll remember he stood in Iowa and made these incredible promises. Remember the one on the night of the caucuses in 2008? He said our healthcare system is broken. He said that he would fix it. He said that he would do it with Republicans together. He said he would focus on cost containment. He said he was against, as a candidate, the individual mandate. Then he went to Washington, D.C., and he broke every one of those promises. He stiff-armed the Republicans in the head. He jammed down the throats of the country, one of the most partisan, most misguided pieces of legislation, unconstitutional pieces of legislation in the modern history of the country. And then he switched positions and became in favor of the individual mandate. Ladies and gentlemen, Obamacare should be repealed in its entirety. He made other promises. He became President of the United States, and in March of 2009, after he knew about the collapse of the economy in its full magnitude, he said, as President, I will cut the budget deficit in half during my first term. Now, at the end of the Bush administration, the budget deficit for that year was around $500 billion. So to keep his promise, he would have had to make it $250 billion. We are 3.5 years into his presidency. Do you know what the deficit is for this year? About $1.5 trillion. He didn't cut it in half. He tripled it. Now the list goes on and on and on, but I'll give you one more. Of course, he said the economy's in trouble, and it is, as you all painfully know. He said the answer is to pass this porked up, ridiculous government stimulus bill. And he said if you don't pass it, unemployment could go as high as 8%. And they passed it. And unemployment didn't go to 8%. It went to 10%. So ladies and gentlemen, those are just some of the misgivings and misguided leadership of this president. But now we need to move forward. If we're going to have a new and better direction for America, we're going to need a new and better president. We're going to need a Our job isn't to just criticize him, it's to also show Americans that we deserve the responsibility and the privilege of government, that we've got a better plan and a better way forward. And it starts with this. We need to get the economy moving again. If we went around this room and asked you what you like to do, what you value, people would get up and talk about the importance of taking care of your family, the importance of being generous to your church, the importance of trying to pay your mortgage, and the importance of putting gas in your car, and the importance of paying your health care premiums. Guess what all that requires? You got to have some money. And for most of us, the main way we get money is to have a job. So one of the best things our government can do is to create an environment where businesses want to start and grow. And you know what? A 10-year-old can explain this better than Barack Obama. I was at an event like, my little 10-year-old friend Malin was at an event like this not long ago. I talked to him out in the lobby. He told me his views about the economy, and it was so good I had to come up and tell him in the microphone. He was here tonight, he'd tell you himself. But here's what he said. I said, Malin, what should we do with the economy and jobs and taxes? Again, 10 years old. He said this, well, Governor, if you keep the taxes low, then people will have more money. And if people have more money, then they'll have more money to buy things. And if they buy more things, the businesses will be busier. And if the businesses are busier, then they'll hire more people. And then the more people will have more money, and then they'll buy more things, and so on and so on. We shouldn't have to have a 10-year-old school the President of the United States on how to run and generate jobs in the private economy in this country. A 10-year-old knows more about the economy than Barack Obama. So I've given the most specific, most concrete proposal of how to get this economy growing again. A pro-jobs, pro-growth economic speech at Barack Obama's former place of employment, the University of Chicago. They used to have his head on the t-shirts, now they have Milton Friedman's heads on the t-shirts. But the short version is this, it's on the website if you want to read the whole thing, but the Reader's Digest version is this. Take the corporate rate from one of the highest in the world to one of the best in the world. Clean out all, or as many as possible, the loopholes, deductions, and credits, so our businesses have to compete on a lower tax rate, but their ability to succeed will depend on their ability to connect to their customers, not their ability to get a lobbyist and connect with a member of Congress. Take the individual rates from 6 down to 2, eliminate taxation on interest and dividends and capital gains and the estate tax, do the real work of getting spending under control, have an energy policy that has 3 words in it, more American energy. Get the regulatory system fixed so it's pro-job and pro-economic investment and pro-growth in this country and more. I hope you'll read it. But I want to close tonight by telling you one important thing. And And that is every candidate here tonight or may come through town in the future on the Republican side, most of the candidates are going to say many of the same things. They're going to say, look, I'm for reducing spending and government. I'm for reducing taxes. I'm for education reform, focusing on parents. I'm for public employee compensation reform. I'm for appointing conservative justices. I'm pro-life. I'm pro-traditional marriage. I'm for doing health care the right way, etc., etc. So you're going to listen to all that. And you're going to say, well, gosh, they sound a lot alike. What's the difference between these Republican candidates for president? Well, any bobblehead can stand up here and give you the Republican line on these issues. But after Barack Obama, after what we've been through as a country, after what we saw in his campaign, after what we've seen in his presidency, I hope you'll ask a couple of additional questions. Number one, as these candidates talk, all of us ask the question, did you do it? Because I don't want to hear any more speeches. I don't want to hear any more empty rhetoric. The hour is late and the country's in trouble. We got to have strong leaders for serious times that not only talk about this stuff and give speeches, but get the job done. So if you look at my record in Minnesota, here's what you'll see. As governor in one of the toughest political environments in the country, not rubber stamping a Republican legislature's work. I never had a Republican legislature. You'll see that I took spending from historic highs to historic lows. You'll see that I cut taxes net over my 8 years as governor, $800 million, even though we had the effects of 2 recessions during that time. You'll see that we were one of the first states in the nation where we moved from seniority pay for teachers to performance pay for teachers. You'll see that I led the charge for public employee compensation reform before it was the cool and popular thing to do. You'll see that I did healthcare reform the right way. No individual mandates, no government takeovers. You'll see bold and leadership actions on immigration reform and welfare reform. You'll see one of the best unemployment rates in the country. You'll see some of the most progress for the pro-life movement any place in the country. You'll see that I was the co-author of the Defense of Marriage Act. You'll see some of the best conservative appointments of a state Supreme Court of any court in the country, maybe the best. First time now in the state's history that we have a conservative majority on the Minnesota Supreme Court. And the list goes on. I share that with you because there's a big difference between politicians shooting their mouth off and getting the job done. We don't have time anymore for more speeches and more empty rhetoric and more false promises. We need leaders who are ready to be president, who have the executive experience to be president, who have the results and the record of results to say you can count on it getting done, and then have the fortitude to get it done. In Minnesota, it didn't come easy. I had the first government shutdown in 150 years. I set a record for vetoes. I took more money using executive authority out of the budget in Minnesota in my 8 years as governor than all the 142 years worth of governors combined. So these are the kinds of actions that we're going to need. Now look, the way forward may not be easy, but it's not complex. We know what works. The founding fathers gave us the roadmap. We can look back over the chapters of success of this country and see why we're the greatest nation the world has ever known. We just need to harvest those principles and those values and have this fortitude and the strength to apply them to the challenges of our time. The core of it is this. We went around this room and asked each person in this room, starting with Donna, to stand up and tell your American story. What's important to you, what lessons you learned, what values you prize. I think we hear some incredible stories about your family. I think we hear some amazing stories about your faith and your church. I think we hear some incredible stories about how hard work and industriousness and individual responsibility made a difference in your life. I think we hear some incredible stories about charities and neighborhood and community. I think we hear some incredible stories about friends who entered into your life in a moment of challenge and gave you encouragement and help and support. But I don't think we hear many stories about how the government bureaucracy came into your life and transformed it in a powerful and important way. The point of that story is this, and you know this, the brilliance of our country the majesty of America, the ingenuity of this nation is not in our government, it's not in our bureaucracy, it's in our people. The reason it's different here, we're not the biggest place in the world in terms of population. We're not the cheapest place in the world in terms of cost. You need to be more competitive. But we are the freest place. And when people are free, they can dream as they see fit, they can worship as they see fit, they can invent, they can innovate, they can associate as they see fit. They can have their own ability to grow things. They can say, I'll do it better, faster, cheaper, more interesting, more creative. And the American spirit, the human spirit, is unleashed in a way that is fundamentally different from most other cultures around the world, most other places around the globe, and throughout most of time in history. And when government comes into our lives, and they take over one more piece, sometimes incrementally, of what was reserved for families, what was reserved for community, what was reserved for church and faith, what was reserved for the private sector and entrepreneurs, when they come in and say, no thank you to us, when they elbow us aside, when they make it more difficult, when they make it more expensive, when they slow it down, when they regulate it, when they tax it, or worse yet, just take it over themselves, they not only grow their budgets, they not only grow their footprint, they do something else that's more corrosive to our nation. And it's what's happening right now. They weigh down and discourage the American spirit. Now we have a country that's discouraged. You have people openly wondering whether our future is brighter than our past. You have a plurality of Americans saying China is going to be the best country in the world within 20 years. And you see this and you know this. And we know what it's going to take to fix it. And we can do it. So I ask for your help. And it's important for Iowa not just to be first, but to be right. Barack Obama is ripe for the picking. In fact, I would say politically, you can just about stick a fork in him because it's over for him. His numbers nationally aren't very good. If you look at his numbers in swing states amongst independent voters, his numbers are awful. If the election were held today, he would not only be beat, he'd be beaten comfortably. So the opportunity is right there for us. The House is likely to stay Republican. If you look where those U.S. Senate seats are open, they're very favorable to us. One thing standing between whether we're going to get this nation back on course or not and do what we actually say we want to do and be able to implement what we believe in is whether Barack Obama is removed from the White House. And the main way we're going to goof this up as Republicans is to nominate the wrong candidate. It's not going to be much of a consolation prize for Iowa if you're first, but we don't have a candidate who can go all the way to the nomination, beat Barack Obama, and function at the highest levels as President of the United States in some of the most historically challenging times in our country. So I ask you, before you fuel this rocket and launch it out of here, make sure it can get all the way to the destination. Because if we have a candidate who has what it takes to get this done along the lines that I just described, we'll not only be able to win this election, but we're going to be able to save our country. And I need your help. So I hope you'll come to Ames a week from Saturday, the 13th. We're going to have Dairy Queen blizzards. We're going to have barbecue. We're going to have music. It'll be fun. The weather's going to be great. If you haven't signed up on our website, I hope you'll sign one of our postcards on the way out. It's going to have a big impact on this race. And so I hope that you'll help us. I respectfully ask for your help and your support. Thank you, and God bless you. Thank you for coming out.
We have a lot more programs to go, but at this point, I think we should give all four of our presidential candidates a rousing applause.